again. You're the first person that ever explained that to me. Part of me is a little humbled by that, but also it makes me upset.
Welcome to the Clinic Talk Podcast. I'm here with Michael Hyland from Hyland Physical Therapy, and we're going to ask Michael a few questions about himself and his business. Michael, how are you today?
Wonderful. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael, for joining in. So I know you're a busy guy. It took a while for us to get together and do this, but I'm excited. So thank you very much for joining. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to start with just letting everyone know about yourself. Can you give a little introduction on who you are, what you do, and where in the world are you?
Yeah, so right now, just to answer the latter question first, I live and practice in Oklahoma, and the Tulsa area. Broken Arrow is our suburb, and right. And we'll get to this later, but we have a mobile practice here. Mm-hmm. But in terms of my background, I grew up in Pensacola, Florida originally, and I ended up in Oklahoma because of my wife, who is a good thing though, but she led me to this part of the country. I had never been to Oklahoma before 2011. I didn't even know what to expect because in my mind, Oklahoma was flat and dry. Wow. But the northeastern part of Oklahoma is actually a really beautiful place. It's very green and hilly and pretty temperate compared to some states, but still we could throw a good winter here too. Just don't get me wrong. But anyway, originally from Pensacola, Florida. My parents are in the medical field each, and I guess so. It's a little bit of that. It's in my blood. My grandfather, actually, my dad's dad was a dentist. My dad followed his footsteps and became a dentist. And my mom was an MD, retired. They're both retired now, but she's an MD pathologist. And so physician. I never really felt called to medicine or dentistry for sure. But I wanted to help people. And so that was something that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do until I was already in college in the midst of my degree. Luckily, I was in a track where I didn't have to change degrees. I was already doing biology pre-health. Yeah. So once I decided physical therapy was what I wanted to pursue, I looked into observing at a couple different sites. And one of my actual principal site that I got most of my observation hours in was an acute care hospital. In Mobile, there's a hospital that University of South Alabama runs, and it's actually a level 1 trauma center. It's a teaching hospital. So they have quite literally the worst patients you could possibly imagine in terms of just horrible cases. But I actually, as hard as sometimes the cases were, being a volunteer aide in that environment, actually I really loved it. And I feel like some of the PT colleagues that were there said, you know, if you can handle this, you could probably do just about anything in therapy. So, so I did finally get into PT school. I went to University of St. Augustine for health sciences at the original campus in Florida, and graduated in 2012 with my doctorate. And even when I was in school, I went through all the clinicals like we all do. But I wasn't really sure what I wanted to focus on. I really was interested in neurology. And I ended up doing acute care actually first out of school, and then outpatient at the hospital, home health, and then I decided to start my own practice. Now, just going back for a second to graduate school, when I was in physical therapy school, I mentioned neurology was an interest of mine. Or neuroscience. I wasn't really wanting to go into necessarily like inpatient rehab or anything that intense, but I was interested in that. But ultimately, one of the things that piqued my interest and also really became a passion of mine was Parkinson's disease and helping individuals with Parkinson's, which you could see in my background. That's actually something maybe we'll talk about later, but I actually have content creation around that in addition to our practice, which specializes in Parkinson's. And so it's a long story as to why that's probably where I wanted to go with things, but that was I was in a clinical neuroscience lab, and it was really inspired with the Parkinson's population. I knew I could make a big impact there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Michael. So yeah, you weren't kidding. It runs in your blood, and you found something that you actually have a passion for. So that's cool. All right. No, very, very nice, very inspiring. I'm sure a lot of people out there also sometimes they have to switch gears, right? They go for one thing and then they find their passion. So, and it's not too late. A lot of times I speak to people and sometimes, they still don't know exactly what specialty they want to do. Yeah. So it's great that you actually know exactly which population you want to serve and cater to. And you mentioned the content creation. So I want to get back to that a little bit later because that's actually really interesting. So if I forget, just remind me, Michael, because I do want to.
Okay.
About that. All right, cool. So tell us what type of practice. So it's an in-home practice, is that correct?
Yes, we started out actually as kind of a hybrid, having a brick and mortar and a mobile side to the practice. But honestly, our demand for mobile visits outweighed our demand for in-person services at our clinic. And so there was so much overhead with the practice having a physical location that I made the decision 3 years in to actually go 100% mobile. And since almost the beginning, we've been a Medicare practice. Not quite from the very beginning, but about a year in. And so, I discovered from, just relationships I have with people in the community, physical therapy community particularly, that mobile practice was a viable option, especially, or even as a Medicare provider. And so being able to provide an outpatient level of service to folks in their home is pretty amazing because there's not as much red tape. Home health care, there's your Medicare Part A home health care. So much has changed in the last few years, even pre-COVID. There's so much that changed. I mentioned I was in home health for a while. I did it full time for almost 2 years and then, transitioned to PRN when I started my practice. But even in that 2-year period from 2018 when I started my practice to COVID, there were so many changes, administrative changes. I mean, PDGM came out, visit time, or what do you call it? The episodes became shorter. I hear stories of people getting 6 PT visits and then they're discharged. Wow. And I mean, these are chronic conditions. They're not, and so honestly, it hasn't hurt our practice at all because a lot of times folks will get home health care and then honestly, I don't blame them. They're kind of disgruntled that they're being discharged and they don't really feel ready. And then traditionally, this next step for most people would be, go to Select or wherever down the street, and get your therapy now. Well, it's still not easy for them always to get out of the house. And if they still take the help of a loved one or a caregiver, to get them places. And so we kind of fill a gap. I feel like all mobile practices fill a gap, a really important gap that is not really met by our healthcare system very often. It's more so now, but I feel like that gap is so important because that gap is where home healthcare ends and outpatient therapy begins, but we can meet in the middle and do that in their home.
100%. And you have a unique kind of experience because you work in home health and you have your own patient. So you know both sides, and you work in a brick and mortar, and you said you were hybrid. So you kind of know already the depths of every single aspect of the healthcare space for physical therapy. And where you are today is you decided on being in a true outpatient mobile practice. Because, as you said, it bridges the gap. So that's really cool. That's really cool. Thanks, Michael, for sharing that. Is there an opportunity, do you think, later on to go back to being a hybrid, or do you want to stay with mobile? That's where you feel like your patients are being taken care of the most.
I feel like there is potentially a place for going back to hybrid at some point. I don't know what's going to determine that, but I guess the one thing I would say that would lead to that in my mind is the more services that we've added in terms of so we actually have a group class for our LSVT Big therapy graduates. And that's LSVT Global has this group program they put together called Big for Life. And we have a relatively growing group. But now we're blessed in the situation we have. We actually are able to, at no charge, use a space at the Broken Arrow Senior Center for hosting our class, which is incredible. And honestly, it's all about, if anything comes out of this conversation, I would say relationships are huge, because the relationship I have with the executive director of that facility is probably the only reason I'm not paying anything, and it's not because I asked not to pay. She's actually pretty involved in the Parkinson's community, and when she heard about my idea for hosting or for having a class, she asked me if it was gratis or if it would be charging. I said, well, it will have a membership fee to it. She said, okay, well, I'm looking at the calendar, and she said, we were starting this in June, and she said, the calendar looks like it's open for you to start and do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And not only that, but you could use the really big exercise room. They've got this huge conference room that you literally could divide in half.
Wow.
And we used that huge space for our class, and I thought I was going to get this small room you could fit 20 people in. And we got this huge space, and I said, how much were you expecting us to pay for rent for this? And she was like, oh, I was just going to offer it to you for nothing. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So
that doesn't come around too often these days, right?
No. So I guess what I'm trying to get at with that question is, I don't know if there's an immediate need for a brick and mortar. But I think down the road, if we ever did go that route, I guess it would offer, or it would lend itself well to some of our group activities, having a space, especially with the room to do exercise classes. Because Parkinson's exercise classes, or for LSVT Big, that's one thing, but we could also even potentially offer therapist-led classes for just the general aging population as well. So there's you may not be familiar with her, but do you know Patrice Hazan down in South Carolina?
Doesn't ring a bell.
She developed a program called, her practice is called Group Hab, but she developed all these classes that were therapist designed for the aging population. So there's like a yoga one, there's just a general it's called TheraHab Fitness. So it's basically a fitness class for the aging adult. Fantastic service, I think. And you can go as far as to get training in one class, or I guess there's like a little bundle, or you could do a facility license. I'm not saying we'd go that far, but it's essentially franchising. But I've thought of
a franchise model.
Yeah, it's a franchise model. And so I'm not envisioning that that's necessarily where I would go with it, but if we at least got a therapist or two trained in one of their programs, I'd love to offer that to the whole community.
Cool. Very, very good. So it sounds like there's potential sometime in the future. I always like, because it also leads into one of my questions for the end is going to be a long-term goal. So thanks, Michael, for sharing that. So as far as your business goes currently, is this a full-time gig for you now, or is it part-time?
Yes, full-time for me.
Awesome. Okay. Listen, it's amazing, right? When you can build something for yourself and then you jump in full-time to your own business.
It's scary. It's scary to become uncaged.
Yes, it is a scary feeling, but sometimes it's like sink or swim, right? Because once you jump in, that's it. You got to do whatever you can to stay afloat. And business ownership is not always easy. But again, if you have a passion for it, as they say, if you love what you do, then you don't have to work. Right?
Yeah, you don't work a day in your life. Yep.
There you go. So awesome. And do you have any employees? Do you have, from a therapist side, you have employees?
Yes, we do. We have 3 part-time therapists that work for me. I have 2 physical therapists and an occupational therapist.
Cool.
We have had speech, but we're without a speech at the moment. But to have a well-rounded team, I'd like to add that as well back in.
Gotcha.
We have an administrative assistant as well. Do what?
To complete the trifecta. OTP.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's it. And we have an administrative assistant as well. Yeah.
Okay, so staff, you also have an admin assistant. Okay. And back to the therapist for a second, are they contractors or they're on their payroll?
All of our therapists are W-2, so they are, even though they're part-time, they're employed. Yeah.
Employed. Okay. All right. And do you offer them benefits? Do you do anything for them as far as like compensation for documentation time?
Since they're part-time, what I've offered to do is, obviously there's not like a full benefits package, but I've offered to do paid time off as well as, so basically they get 4 weeks of paid time annually, and then the holidays are paid. There's the main holidays are paid, not PTO, but they're paid holidays. And then I offer them the opportunity to have Legal Shield, ID Shield added to their, so they can get an account with that for their family, one or the other or both. So that's at least what I can offer for now. As far as like insurance and all that coverage, it's probably a little bit outside of our budget, but
it's still good part time, and you offer some type of benefits. It is good. Do you have like need to hire more therapists, or right now you're stable, you're good where you are?
For our local needs, we're stable. Like I said, I think if we had the speech, it would add a little bit extra ability for us to help everybody in the most well-rounded way. Because even if they don't have orders for speech at first, it might be identified that they need an SLP involved.
Yeah.
And so we can always request the referral. But honestly, since our other SLP quit, she actually wanted to take a full-time job, which is why she ended up leaving us, unfortunately. But when we had her, or since she has left us, we have had orders for speech only, and I'm just like, I hate that. We've had to tell the doctor's office that we can't do it. So
yeah, I know. You want to turn down referrals,
and they're good referral sources. Like they're good. They're actually regular referral sources. I'm like, sorry. So
I know, but listen, it's a way to, as you said, you can always hire someone when it's the right fit, and then you can, it's an increase of services that you provide, and it's a way to grow your business. So, all right, so there's an opportunity there, it sounds like. So, you mentioned admin assistant. What does the admin assistant do? Is it one? You have one admin assistant?
Yeah, so we have one, and she's technically, her title is Client Experience Manager because she really handles the front. Well, she handles the initial conversations with our patients, whether they're a lead coming in, or typically it's referrals from physicians, or it could be a call in, or it could be a lead. We don't, at the moment we're not running paid ads. So, but when we were, we had leads coming in off Facebook ad forms, or Instagram. And then she would have that initial conversation. But she's great no matter what source those people come in from. Shout out to Jerry Durham because he really helped us out a few years ago. With
I know great.
Yeah, I bet you know him pretty well. We did the front desk experience. Now I forget what it's called, what he does, but we did that. My administrative assistant and I did that together, so we kind of spoke the same language.
Cool.
And so it's been a wonderful thing because when a patient calls us, or we call them to set up an initial eval, it's never just, we got a referral, so here's our openings, we're gonna give you come in.
Yeah.
What's your insurance? What's your date of birth? It's a full, she gets a story, and I think that really has served us extremely well in terms of relationship. Yeah.
No, that's actually really cool, because the patient gets, it seems like, an experience from their first conversation, as opposed to, as you said, what's your date of birth, what's your name, what's your insurance, just to get them in. So that's cool. That's really cool. So what do you do for the company? Because it sounds like you're busy treating. What are
not nearly as much as I was. My caseload is significantly lowered in the last few months. Since about, I want to say September, October of this year, I hired our newest PT was hired in August, and she kind of she had to trickle in because she was transitioning out of her other job.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, once she was able to get more on board with us, I basically had all of the new patients going to her for Parkinson's care because I helped to pay for her to do LSVT big certification, which that's our practice's main model for that rehab. And so, once she got trained up, I started, I did some mentorship with her, although it turned out her learning style was best. She kind of thrived best with try it out, and if I need help, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
When I was looking over her shoulder, she was kind of like, why are you here?
Yeah.
But,
and everyone has their learning style, right?
No, yeah. And I respected that completely because she's a CI and she's also more experienced than I am even. And so it was never about, I'm better than you, but since it was a new niche, I wanted to make sure she felt that she was ready to take on things, and she definitely took things on very quickly, and has done an excellent job. But anyway, the point is my caseload is probably down to 8 to 10 sessions a week.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to be hiring somebody.
Okay.
And that most recent hire was the one I really needed to try to step back out of the clinical care. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So, congratulations on that. You met that goal. So now you have, with the time that you freed up, right? What are you focusing that time on? Is it more on your business? Is it more family, personal lifestyle?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mix of things, but I've got, there's certainly family time because, if I don't have to leave the house till 10 o'clock in the morning, that, it's a lot less stressful to get the kids to school and all that stuff. I can work on some things. I tend to work on administrative tasks on the side because, what Sherelle handles in the customer service department, I handle pretty much everything else that's, and have always done, billing and, billing and handling claim submission and all that stuff. So, I have a kind of a routine every Monday. I'll go to, Inovalon. I'll download all the ERAs. I'll upload them into, HelloNote to kind of, just basically get those payments uploaded, and so we can kind of track some metrics, and
you can run whatever you need. Okay. Awesome. So billing is something you're doing, and you're doing that just in-house by yourself, through HelloNote and Inovalon. Do you ever want to hand that off to somebody, or that's something you want to, keep within yourself?
I would say I would probably hand it off if we branched out, because I can handle the claim numbers that we're dealing with now with the 5 of us.
Yeah.
Or however many, I guess it's 4 therapists, the 4 of us seeing patients. But, I think if it was a lot more than that, I'd probably would like to have someone's help with that. I know you all have some people you work with.
Listen, we promote both, either in-house or outsource. It really depends on you, on the business owner, right? Nobody runs their practice the same way, and there's pros and cons to both. So, but that's awesome. You're doing your own billing, and listen, it's your money, right? So a lot of times you want to keep that. It's not uncommon. I speak to a lot of clinic owners, and they want to kind of keep that billing side internal to them. If they know how to do it, right? If they learn how to do it and it works for them and they have a routine already, then it's hard to give that up, because now you have to trust somebody else with your money, essentially, right? So awesome. So thanks for sharing that. And on the topic of claim submission, all of that, what is your breakdown of your clinic as far as insurance versus cash? Do you have a mix of both?
Yes, it's a mix of both, but I would say it's definitely more on or has become more on the insurance side, on the Medicare side. Because we bill Medicare and some Medicare Advantage plans, as long as they have out-of-network benefits. And most of our patients are fine with that route. And then we do have wellness programs we do on a cash basis.
Okay.
And I mean, when we need to, we will see patients out of pocket if we have no way to bill their insurance. And actually, it seems like when that happens, it's either there's a couple specific Advantage plans that are not, you just can't work with them, or it's private insurance companies that make it weird, or like their commercial plans. And so it's probably 80-20. I mean, we really have being 80% being the insurance side.
So that's healthy.
But Medicare, it's really Medicare. We really don't deal with commercial insurance. It's very rare for us.
Yeah, it's tough also with the private insurances and Medicare Advantage. You got to deal with co-payments and eligibility, and that's it for your type of model, because it's neuro. You need consistency, right? So you don't want to be limited to amount of visits or CPT codes, or even sometimes financial burden of co-insurances, co-payments, deductible, prevent patients from, getting the therapy they need because they can't afford the co-payment. So, but 8% Medicare, 20%, that's a good, it sounds like a healthy amount. So, all right, very good. And so let me just go back to the content, creation set. So tell us a little bit about that. What do you do on that side?
That's something else I use my spare time for. It's been a lot easier lately than it has been up until.
Creation is not it takes time.
It does. I'll be the first to admit there have been some late nights. But so in short, what I do is I have a YouTube channel and a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like as simple as that. That's the name of it, Parkinson's Disease Education Podcast. And I merged the content on the YouTube and I used to have a audio only podcast that was called something different, slightly different. But I decided to merge the content so that I basically just take the audio from the video and upload that as the podcast. But YouTube also has podcasts, so the playlist for my content is a podcast form on my channel. Actually, it's pretty incredible. The channel, beginning of 2023, was not monetized. We were up to, I think at the beginning of 23, we were up to, I think it was like 500 subscribers probably around January or February.
Mm-hmm.
And we became fully monetized by July.
Wow.
So it grew a lot in a short period of time. One video took off and that really did it for us. And now I'm over 8,000 subscribers.
Yeah, sometimes all it takes is that one video, something to hit, get shared. So that's awesome. Good for you, Michael. And you created this yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Good.
Yeah,
tough job.
Part of my passion is actually teaching people about the condition because, unfortunately, there's just a lot of knowledge gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Because and there's probably honestly a place for this for clinicians as well, but I'm primarily gearing this toward the obviously the person with Parkinson's or their loved ones. But I find that I have conversations with patients, and have for several years since I started my practice, and they literally have said over and over again, "You're the first person that has ever explained that to me."
Wow.
And I'm just like, part of me is a little humbled by that, but also it makes me upset. It's like,
why were you the first person? Right?
Why is nobody else teaching you this? And so I'm like, well, heck, I'm going to teach people anyway. So, I mean, there are great resources out there. I'm not knocking them at all. There's these big organizations, the really big ones like Michael J. Fox, Parkinson's Foundation. And there's more relatively smaller ones like Davis K. Finney Foundation. In fact, that's run by a guy named with Parkinson's. He was still living and running the company. But, they're great, but it's kind of like drinking through a fire hose because you go on their website and you can look up something like dyskinesia and then you'll find articles and things about dyskinesia, but it's like I feel like it's all piecemeal. You're looking for individual symptoms or and so my goal is always from the beginning to explain the topics in the most bite-sized, straightforward way possible for people to understand it well. And to not take an hour to talk about one subject. If you look at webinars about Parkinson's stuff, I mean, like, it'll be like cognitive changes in Parkinson's, an hour and 15 minutes. It's like, who's going to watch that?
Right. So the attention span, right. You want to, especially because, these are for patients. It sounds like you want to keep it short. So this way they get the value out of listening. And listen, that's good. And that's also hard to do because sometimes there's so much to talk about. So you want to condense that. So awesome. Well, we'll definitely tag your podcast, with ours as well. So everybody knows where to find that. Cool. That's awesome, Michael. And just the last question for you is, what advice do you have for others that are looking to start their business, that are trying to find their passion, right? And maybe that didn't find their passion yet. Would you recommend they go after their niche, or what would you tell them?
If you have a passion for a particular niche of patient population, or even an interest area related to patient population, like it could be something like, just throwing out an example, you might have a passion for diabetes education. Even though you're a physical therapist or an OT or whatever, that has a direct impact on people you're trying to help with falls and trying to help get stronger and trying to help get more fit. So it could be something that specific, and it doesn't matter how many other people are doing this in your area. You could be the expert on this topic, and that will get you leads, and that will get you patients faster than if you try to see everybody. I can tell you from experience and all countless stories of people that tried to talk to everybody and didn't really reach anybody. And from personal experience, I can tell you that once we started to delve into Parkinson's as a full-time focus, the doors started opening. And ironically, you start to get referrals for people that don't have Parkinson's. So I can't tell you how many times.
It's like indirect marketing as well, right?
Exactly.
You want to build your brand, right? And
exactly.
Okay. Awesome.
I can't tell you how many times we had people respond to our Facebook ads being like, well, actually, I don't have Parkinson's, but I've got this other issue. Can you help me with it? I'm like, yes. So,
you know what? As you said, you're a PTOT and you have a passion for something. You still have the skill set, right? As a therapist. So if you,
Well, and early on, you want to be a yes man or a yes woman because you don't want to turn away. I hate to say it this way, but you don't want to turn away warm bodies when you're starting out. So even if they're not in your niche, serve them at the highest level possible and do the best you can. And you're going to get more patients, and people are going to do reviews for your practice and word of mouth and all that. And hopefully talk to their doctors as well. That's important. But what I was going to say is you don't always have to be that way. Like if you find your niche where they know your name in your area or online, wherever, you can start to turn away those outside patients if you really want to, because at that point you may not need to see everybody anymore. So that
found your population, your niche. Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. So, you got to start with open arms, and then you slowly got to condense. Now listen, if you see a need for something that's not your niche, either you can open yourself to accepting that, or as you mentioned earlier, your network, right? You can refer them to somebody else, because that goes a long way. So
it does go a long way.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Very good. Michael, thank you very much. Appreciate your time today, and hope to chat with you soon. So thanks for sharing everything you mentioned today.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Talk to you soon.